As Talking Point said last night, and that memo was posted on BillO'Reilly.com, there's no way Barack Obama comes out of this unscathed. Senator Reid can spin all day long, but most Americans know the president has bungled the Syrian situation and foreign policy in general. There is a good chance he will never recover from this, no matter what happens. What is likely to happen is some debate at the UN, which will lead nowhere, and maybe an international force sometime down the road that might monitor Assad, maybe, could, perhaps. That will keep the tyrant in power, and Putin will keep pulling his strings. Meantime, the USA just gets weaker and weaker. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction. Joining us from Washington, Fox News political analyst Charles Krauthammer. So where am I going wrong, Charles?
Amazingly, nowhere. I mean, you not only have stumbled on the truth, you've staggered onto the truth. This is entirely a Russian ploy, and it wasn't proposed because they were afraid of a U.S. strike. They know there's no support in Congress. They know the president himself is completely ambivalent. And they heard Kerry say that it would be, what is it, incredibly small, even if there was a strike. That's not the reason they made the offer. The reason they made the offer is because they saw an opportunity to give Obama a face-saving way out in which nothing happens in Syria except for the fact that Russia's major ally, Assad, stays in power, America doesn't strike, the rebels are demoralized, and if there is any process, however weak, for looking at these chemical weapons, that means there'll be inspections. You'll have to recognize Assad as a legitimate government. The convoys will have to go under Assad's protection. The rebels are going to have to stand down. It is exactly the situation the Russians want.
Okay.
And Obama walked into the trap because for him, it's a political face-saver.
But it really isn't, with Putin today coming out and saying, well, wait a minute now, we're not going to do anything until Mr. Obama guarantees he's not going to use military force, not only now, but down the road. Come on. You can emasculate a man only so much, and particularly the president of the United States.
With Obama, you never know.
I know.
You can try to push it more. And look, the more Putin pushes, do you see any resistance from Obama?
Well, I think we're going to see a little bit tonight. Listen, I think we're going to see a feisty president tonight for one reason and one reason only. He knows he looks weak. He knows it's all going south. He knows he's getting hammered. He's got to come off as a tough guy tonight. I think that's what you're going to see, a tough guy.
It's going to be a tough guy, all talk and no action.
Okay, that may be true, but he's not going to get it, like this and start to whine about things. Now, here's an interesting thing. John Podhoretz, who's a conservative writer, puts forth in the Wall Street Journal that this is all by design, that a weak America overseas is what the president really wants and has wanted from the very beginning, and that's part of his transformational presidency. That he wants America not to be the lone superpower, not to be the arbitrator of justice. He wants America to be France, Germany, in that realm. Do you believe that? Do you believe that that's now what the president wants?
Well, first of all, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was written by Norman Podhoretz.
Norman, what did I say, John?
The father of John.
The father, yeah. Okay. Norman,
Look,
thank you.
As I've told you 100 times on this show, I don't like to play psychiatrist, so I cannot tell you the deeper reasons. I can say that I do think that Obama shares, with a whole generation of Democrats and liberals, a great skepticism of American power. We saw it in the Clinton years when Clinton wanted to sign one treaty after another to bind the United States like Gulliver with a million little strings, treaties that wouldn't really hold back anybody else, but would hold us back. And I think that's sort of the idea. You know, we got a little bit large for our britches, and we want to have the international community cut America down to size, not necessarily because they don't like America, because they think that power corrupts and we are too strong on the world scene. Is this why Obama is doing this? I think not. I think in this case he's surrounded by advisors who really do believe that we have a moral duty to act when something like chemical weapons happens. The problem is their boss, the commander-in-chief, has no stomach for this, has no commitment to this, thinks he's somehow intellectually, morally obligated to do it, so he tiptoes up to it. He issues a red line, he ignores the red line, returns to the red line, and he's looking for a way out. Is this a deliberate strategy? My theory has always been, whenever in Washington I'm confronted with two alternatives to explain a strange series of events, I always choose incompetence over conspiracy.
All right.
So I'm going to stick to that.
Okay. Final question real quick. Why does Putin like Assad? What does Assad do for Putin? I mean, he's such a bad guy, and Putin's a bad guy, too. Maybe they just like their mutual badness. But what is in it for Putin to keep this guy in power?
Good and bad are not categories in the mind of a KGB officer, which is what Putin is. He cares about Russian power. Russia was cut down to size by the end of the Cold War. He called the collapse of the Soviet Union the worst calamity of the 20th century. Think about that and we'll compare it to the other calamities.
And everything else.
So what does Syria offer him? You've got the Iran-Syria-Hezbollah axis, which is now rising in the Middle East, the Shiite crescent, with Iraq as a kind of a junior partner, where they're clients of Russia. This reinserts Russia into the Middle East in a very powerful position, supplanting the United States, which since 1970, when Egypt flipped from a Soviet ally to American ally, the region had been a place for American hegemony since the Kissinger years. This is a great geopolitical coup to become the dominant power. The Arabs are scared to death of the Iran axis, of the nukes they're going to have, and you will see that if this goes unchecked and Assad becomes dominant, Iraq acquires nukes, they will completely dominate the Middle East, the Arab Middle East, and Russia will become the dominant power.
The client power. You said Iraq acquires nukes, you meant Iran.
I meant Iran.
Okay, I made Norman, you made Iraq, all right. See?
So we're even.
Even brilliant people can misspeak, and you know, as we see every day on MSNBC.
This has been a Sunfish production.